Hi there, I'm Tanya Finks, Gallup Certified Strengths Coach and bullet journal enthusiast. I help people, partners, and nonprofit leadership teams work, live, and love with greater clarity, intentionality, and alignment with purpose. This channel is my opportunity for intellection, learner, and strategic to run amok. That simply means I like to think about stuff and identify patterns, then share it in a way that hopefully contributes in ways that are important to you. This is my first video. I was introduced to bullet journaling by a coworker who doesn't actually bullet journal. She'd heard about it on a podcast and thought of me and asked if I'd ever heard about it. I watched the video at bulletjournal.com and I was really attracted to the idea of having everything in one location. I have a full-time job. I'm a student. I have a business. I participate in a lot of personal development. So I have notes all over the place. The idea of having one system to manage it all really called to me. I'm high an achiever, so I love making lists and checking things off the list. I'm energized and gratified by being extremely productive, so this system really spoke to me. I went on a brief medical leave after learning about the bullet journal, and my learner went crazy. I watched so many YouTube videos. I really loved how flexible the system is and how you can learn from the process of journaling to make your journaling even more efficient. Strategic, learner, and achiever all love that. It's no surprise that this system makes me happy. I'd love to share with you what I learned in my first month of bullet journaling, so let's get started.
So one of the first things I learned is on the index, I started out writing the pages in the pages column, but I knew that there would be pages or collections that showed up on multiple pages, like my coaching reflections. And I didn't trust that I'd be able to fit all of the numbers in the column. So I very quickly transitioned to placing the numbers after the label, primarily because I didn't want to run out of space on my index, but because of the way I use my bullet journal, I've learned that they're not going to last me very long, so it's not likely that I'll ever run out of space. That said, it's still convenient to have a collection listed once with the page numbers following. It's just easier to see it all in one place rather than having to, read the entire index to find all of the occurrences of that particular collection. So that was one of the things I learned. And then I started out doing 6 months on a page for my future log. And as you can see, November is already pretty full. Well, we're starting November, but I did run out of space. I had to double up and place things out of alignment, which isn't my preference. So next bullet journal, I'll take a different approach to the future log. I'll likely do long columns rather than going across this way and see if that works for me. I think with the long columns, I'll still be able to do 6 months on a spread. But we'll see. I considered doing just 4 months on a spread, just doing 2 months on each page. But I'm going to try the columned view and see if that gives me enough space. And then I accidentally skipped a page between future logs because I did the full year. So I put long-term goals in there. I haven't written out what they are yet, but it's the beauty of the bullet journal. It's very flexible. There's no such thing as a mistake, really. So then I started with my monthly spread. And when I started out, I took a somewhat minimalist view. I was really looking at functionality, learned so much from all of the videos that I watched online. I would not call myself artistic at all. So you can see my October labels are very plain Jane. I discovered after I drew my monthly spread that it's helpful to have the month laid out. This is really helpful for seeing my appointments on particular days, but if I need to know what day of the week the 9th is, or if I need to know the date of the third Thursday in October, it's really more helpful to have the little grid here. And then it was also helpful to have the following month. So I added that in later in the month. And then I also learned that having too many monthly goals is not really realistic. So I will take a different approach in November. And then I started out with dailies. I didn't do a weekly view. I started out with dailies, and I very quickly discovered, given the way that I use the bullet journal, which is to keep track of everything in the same place, that the what's it called? The bullet tracking, the quick bullet, the rapid bullet, I don't know. Rapid journaling, maybe that's what it's called. And keeping track of my to-dos in my dailies was not going to work well for me, because going back and figuring out what I hadn't done so that I could migrate it to another day, I needed to be able to see it more easily, and it really wasn't working well for me. The other thing, so because I just jumped right in, which I highly recommend, you can't figure everything out until you get started, and getting started is really how you start to figure it out. So my first month is a hot mess in terms of the organization of everything. I've got collections in the middle of dailies and weeklies and all of that, which is fine for my first month. I really, like I said, learned a lot. I started making a shopping list, one for an online company that I shop with, so that when I'm ready to order, I have a running list and I don't have to figure out what I'm out of. That's really helpful. I started playing with a grocery list. I'm still figuring that out. I think it is helpful when I run out of things to write it here, but it's not going to be a comprehensive grocery list. But it is helpful to remind me of things that I've run out of if I can just have a place to note it. So it is helpful in that regard. And then I was really inspired by everyone creating the gratitude logs, and so I did start doing logging my gratitude daily. I started out doing one line per day, and then I saw someone else who was just letting it flow. I really liked the way that looked. And then I saw someone else who made their numbers dark, and I also liked the way that looked. And then I started on my own sort of making a gradient, so I'll be more intentional about that in November. But I love the gratitude log. I highly recommend it. And then I have my habit tracker, and I'm somewhat spotty. I'm great in some areas and need room for improvement in others. This first section is my health and fitness. And even though it looks pretty spotty, I just wanted to track the different activities I do. And so I'm, pretty consistently tracking my meals, and less consistently drinking water, and more consistently walking. I'm teaching myself to swim. I'm not doing that very consistently at all, and I'm also not stretching consistently. But even though I'm not consistent, I like seeing it here, because when I go to fill it in every day, it reminds me of what I want to be doing. And so a really good example is in my learning section. I want to learn foreign languages, and given all that I have on my plate, it's not really reasonable for me to expect that I'm going to be able to fit everything in. But because I saw the foreign language every day and recognized that I wasn't filling it in, sort of asked myself the question, how can I fit it in? And I had the brilliant idea, strategic at work, of listening to my language lesson while I'm doing my morning walk. So I started doing that, and it's been quite effective. And I listen to a lesson while I'm walking, and then the next day I repeat that lesson and listen to the next lesson. And it's really been quite an effective strategy. Strategic at work, love that. And you can see I created a section for learner at work. I've got learner number 6. And so, learning is extremely important to me, makes me feel good and happy. And so this is something that I will continue in November as well. And then I've got some markers for my relationship. And then I discovered some other things that I wanted to be tracking later in the month. So I wrote those down here. And then for November, I'll do some more deliberate, figuring out or I've done some more deliberate figuring out of all of the areas that are important to me and all of the things that I'd like to track. So I built that into my habit tracker in November. And then I very early realized that I would be learning a lot from my first month. So throughout the month, I made notes about what I'd like to do differently in November. And then I created my October memories page, which I also really like. As I said, I'm not artistic, so I don't doodle. But someone turned me on to one of the YouTubers. I'm terrible at tracking who did what because I've watched a million YouTube videos, it feels like, and blogs and all of that. If I can find the people, I will definitely give credit where credit is due. But I loved the idea of capturing my memories in pictures and then printing them out and putting them in my memories page. So, hiking with my good friend, I signed up for a vacation in December, so I put the graphic there. I went to the Rams game with my sweetie and his friends showed up. So we had a good time. Anyway, I really like the memories page. I'll do that again in November. And then I started playing with the hand lettering. And all of the fancy bullet journalists are so inspiring in terms of, what they're able to create visually. It really is very inspiring. And I like a pretty bullet journal, but I recognize my limitations. So, I did a little bit of experimenting. It's definitely, I wouldn't say it's pretty, but it is visually stimulating. I do like that. I learned some lessons as well. I'm not good at drawing straight lines either without a ruler or with a ruler. So I gave up on straight lines. My lines aren't straight. I've accepted that. It's all fine. And then I continue to experiment with hand lettering and, making my dailies visually stimulating. I started tracking my water. I tried it in several ways, and it continued to evolve throughout October, and then I think I've landed on a system that I like. And I also started tracking my weight daily. I don't care that you know how much I weigh. I created a food log. I am a member of Weight Watchers. We do have an app to log our weight, but I really liked just writing it out each day. And that has worked for me. I'm going to continue it again next month and see, how that impacts my progress. But for now, I really like this method because I have a good sense of, how much I should be eating. That doesn't mean I stick to it every day. But this, because I am bullet journaling every day, is just really convenient. I do it when I fill out my habit tracker. I fill in my meals for the previous day. And then I discovered, again, watching a million YouTube videos, someone reminded me of morning pages. And so as you'll see back here, I actually intended to journal when I created my habit tracker on the 3rd. And then I discovered, or I saw a video where someone mentioned morning pages. Maybe it was a video, maybe it was a blog. On the 9th, and that really inspired me to start doing morning pages. And so I do them right here in my bullet journal because, again, that's what I was most attracted to, was having everything in one place. And so I do 2 pages. I don't do the full 3 pages because I don't have the time and I write really small. So I started doing that every morning. And then, again, being attracted to having everything in one place. When I go to Weight Watchers, I weigh in and they give me a little sticker and they have a little book that you can track that in. But I decided to put it right here in my bullet journal, again, because I like having everything in one place. So the following week, I recognized that it would be beneficial to have a weekly spread so that I have week at a glance. I can make notes, like when I take the bus to work, but there are days when I need to drive by myself, so I can note that. I only track early morning and evening appointments, and then if I have personal appointments. Same as my monthly spread. I keep my work appointments on my work calendar. But if I have an early morning work meeting or a late evening work meeting, I put them in my bullet journal so that I don't double book my personal time. And then I made a weekly to-do list rather than doing my to-dos in my dailies. And I color code them for the different areas of my life. And so that was helpful. And so again, and then I again changed how I track my water. So that was helpful. And then in my work, I have several members of my team, and I found myself frequently, or over the years, I found myself frequently saying to my my clients, let me discuss that with my team member. I'll get back to you. And then I meet with my team member whenever I do, and wouldn't remember all of the times I'd said, let me discuss this and get back to you. So now I have a discussion log for each of my team members, so that if I make a promise, I can actually capture it. And then when we have time, I actually talk about it. So that's been extremely helpful. And then I'm in a leadership program at work, and so I have a place for my notes there. And then I started so I like to take notes throughout my day, stuff I need to remember, notes on different meetings. And so if there was something that came up that I needed to either add to my task list or add to my calendar, I would just highlight it so that when I'm reviewing the week, and setting up my next week, I make sure that those things get to their proper place, and that's been helpful for me. I created a brain dump for my business because I'm constantly having ideas, and it's really extremely helpful to have a place to capture it. And again, it's right in the middle of everything because that's when I thought of it. And then I'm working with my first client, and so I, make pages to prepare and debrief. And then again, I changed how I'm tracking my water. Coloring it in, and I was looking for the right color. I wasn't pleased with that color. And then I started making larger labels for the different meetings or notes that I'm taking throughout the day, so I can very easily see what I'm noting. It doesn't stand out here. So, right, it all sort of blends together. So now I try so that I can see very quickly at a glance if I need to go back and see something. Again, brain dump continued because I ran out of time, and so I'm doing the threading that people mentioned, noting the previous page where this collection started, and then you'll see it goes to another page, so the next page that you can find it on. That's really helpful. In my next week, I continued the week at a glance, and then went to a Dutch door for my tasks because I ran out of room the previous week, and so that was really helpful. And so then I went to a weekly time tracker to see how I'm spending my time, and a weekly water tracker, which I also like quite a bit. And then what's coming up, I'm tracking that. That's for my like when I have repeating appointments and I want to know when the next appointment is coming. Like my hair appointment, I note that there. I've got season tickets to the Rams game, so I want to know when the next Rams game is coming up, and then if I've got travel coming up. So just those things that I need to pay attention to, and I find myself flipping through the calendar to find them. I just noted them here in the coming up. And then I like to have a quote on my weekly spread that inspires me throughout the week. And I was experimenting with hand lettering, and again, I recognize that I am not artistic. That doesn't mean that it can't make it beautiful, so I found another solution for this, because the point of bullet journaling for me is not to become an artist. I do like it to be pretty. I love the colors, but I accept my limitations. And so in the following week, I made myself a reading list, and I have to say I am proud of this. I like the way this came out. Those are the Tombow markers or pens, highlighters. And so, so I'm also a student, and in class, my professor is always recommending really great books, and I'm writing them in my notes on the dailies, but I needed to have a collection to keep track of that. And I expect it will get quite long, so I reserved a second page for it. And then I created a weight tracker because I like the visual. It motivates me to keep going. And like I said, I'm going on vacation. I booked that this month. And we're going in December, so that gives me a goal to sort of push this forward. So I have my little weight tracker there. And then in my third week, I discovered washi tape, obviously. I had never heard of washi tape before I got a bullet journal and started watching bullet journal videos. But it does make it very pretty. And so this week, rather than hand lettering the quote, I just printed it on a shipping label and stuck it in my journal and put some washi tape to make it pretty. Really like that. And I'm reading a book for a program that I'm creating, and so I made notes of the top things I needed to remember so that I can record a video for my program participants. It's really helpful. And then I started tracking, this is in a random place because I had the space, but I started tracking my French lessons. I mentioned that I'm now learning French while I'm doing my morning walk. And, if I skip a couple days, this will just remind me where I left off as I, again, review the last lesson and then listen to the next lesson. So that's really helpful. And then I was super excited to implement all the learnings from using the bullet journal for the first month to create my November. So in a YouTube video, someone had used washi tape to mark the new month. So I thought I would try that out. I actually really like it. As I was doing it, I wasn't sure how it was coming together, but I think it's really pretty. And then I found an image just online and printed it on a shipping label. Cut that out. I think I'm gonna draw some leaves to round out the page. And then my November monthly, I haven't filled in my appointments month yet, but I didn't vary it much from October, except I did give it a prettier label. The morning, afternoon, evening really worked for me. And again, I will focus on early morning work appointments, late evening work appointments, and then all my personal appointments. And I saw someone else sort of highlight the weekends. I liked that as well. And then I've got the months there, and then I color code my my appointments. And then I made a November goals and tasks. I haven't written the goals and tasks yet, but I mentioned back in October that having too many goals was sort of unrealistic, and so taking my cue from Boho Berry, I'm just going to focus on 3 or 4 key areas in life and my main goals for the month, and then break out some tasks based on those larger goals. Then I've got my November memories page and my habit tracker. So again, I continued to categorize, but I went the long way so that I had more space, and really will take advantage of the habit tracker because it was very effective for me in October. And so I figured the more I include that I want, the more of the habits that I want to establish or maintain that I include in my tracker, the more consistent I'll get over time, and the more quality information I'll have about how I'm doing. So I recreated the food log because that worked quite well for me, and again created my gratitude log for October. And then in my weekly spread, I did make a slight change because I was noticing that having the week at a glance really is helpful for me. I can make little notes about what I need to pay attention to, like I said, when I need to drive into the office rather than taking public transport. But I felt like there was quite a bit of wasted space, and so I thought I would take a different approach and sort of bucket the days there. I moved my time tracker here. I've got my months. I've got my French lesson. I've got my Dutch door to-do list. I've got my water tracker, my coming up, and my quote. So I was able to, it gave me a little extra space so that I was able to include the language lesson on the monthly spread. So we'll see how this works for me. It should work fine given how much space I've been using in the weekly. You know, I've got 5 lines here. I've actually got, 11 lines to work with, or I should say 10 lines to work with. So it should be plenty of space. Again, strategic at work, figuring out the patterns of what's going to work for me. The Dutch door to-do list works quite well for me, as you can see in last week's. I had quite a bit of activity to capture, and I didn't have as productive a week last week. Well, it looks that way because I haven't marked a lot off, but I just had more work meetings, so there was less work time. Anyway, so I'm set up for all of November and the first week. I'll continue with my dailies. One change that I will make to my dailies, I do 2 pages of morning pages, and then use the rest of the page, and I usually start the next page on a fresh page. I think this is a better example. Nope, because I used it all. Right, so here, so I left a bunch of empty space. I filled this in later. So I actually stopped here and started my new morning pages fresh here so that I can track, writing 2 full pages. But I think what I'll do in the coming week is I'll start the new page wherever the old page ends, and I'll just make sure that I write 2 pages and then go from there. It doesn't have to start at the top of the page for me to know that I've done 2 pages. So that's another change that I'll make. We'll see how the November setup serves me. But I really like the way it turned out. I think I've found really simple ways to make it pretty that don't require me to, try to use artistic ability that I don't have. But it's still, I think, very attractive to the eye. It calls me to use it. That's what the aesthetic does for me. Like, I like looking at it, so I come to it every day. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you for watching.